Welcome to episode number 3 of the Hobbies and Happiness podcasts. I'm one of your hosts, Dan.
And I'm Jim.
And today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about barriers to entry into trading card games and collectible card games. Let's get into it. So, Jim, how was your Easter, man?
We had a pretty fun time.
We did, didn't we? And we're saying we because Jim and his girlfriend spent the majority of the day with me and my wife's family.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So you know what? I don't even think I've asked you. So how was it? Did you enjoy yourself?
Yeah, honestly, after we left, I was like, I feel pretty good. I felt really good.
Good. That is really good to hear. Like you saying that, like that you just felt good. That's good. I'm really glad that you feel like that. That's good. And I guarantee you that my friends, and I can think of a few in particular, are going to be really happy to hear that. That is really good. That is really good. I mean, you did spend a good chunk of the day there.
Yeah, it was from what, like 9:30 to almost 4 o'clock.
Yes. But and you know what? I was glad that you were able to stop and see some of your family because you were pretty much close by.
Yeah, there was no reason not to stop by.
For sure. That is definitely always a blast. And I just also want to say happy Easter to everybody listening. We hope you had an enjoyable Easter holiday this year and you're able to spend some time with your friends and family.
Yep.
And so I just wanted to say happy Easter at the start of this podcast. What about you, Jim? Do you want to say happy Easter?
Happy Easter, guys.
All right. So today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about barriers to entry into TCGs and CCGs. TCG is a trading card game. That's what TCG stands for. CCG stands for collectible card game. So basically, to start this off, let's define our terms here.
Yep.
What is a CCG and a CCG? So to me, Jim, now I'm just going to say this up front.
Yeah.
You have more experience in this arena than I do.
I've been messing with card games since 99.
I feel like it's been a long time for me.
I was 6.
Yeah. I feel like it's been a long time for me, but you've been doing it for forever. Now, I remember when I was a kid, I remember Pokemon, Magic, when Magic first really became a thing.
Yeah.
But I never really got into it. So I'm more of a later adopter, as an adult.
Late bloomer.
Yeah, there you go. Late bloomer.
Yeah.
But you definitely have much more experience in this arena. So, okay. So again, we got trading card games and collectible card games. So what is the difference? Let me tell you what I think.
All right.
To me, because again, this definitely this had to have shifted and kind of evolved from many, many years. But today, to me, TCGs and CCGs basically mean the same thing.
They pretty much are.
They pretty much are.
Yeah.
Like one has the word trading in it and the other has the term collectible in it.
Yeah.
But so many TCGs and CCGs nowadays are all digital.
Pretty much.
And for the most part, there really isn't that trading element in the digital version of the game or the digital space.
I guess now we're going to be having a DCG, digital card game.
You know what? Yeah, I so many of them now can just be called that.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of what I would think. Yep. Again, being a late bloomer and just getting into these things much late in the game. For you, having grown up with them, what's the difference? Enlighten me.
So back in the 90s, there were a whole lot of cards being produced, whether it was baseball, basketball, Pokemon, Magic. They started making a lot of them, and they're
like after the craze, like with the sports memorabilia, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
So and also leading into like the early 2000s, they started coming out with card games for everything.
Right.
And they started to get a bad stigma. They were originally CCGs, collectible card games.
Okay.
And then it transformed into TCGs, trading card games, to get away from the stigma of what CCGs were. Essentially money grabs, because it was pretty much making a card for every little thing.
Right. So what you're saying is the stigma is still around for being cash grabs.
Yes.
It totally is.
Yes.
For those of you.
But they changed the name. So it was different.
Okay. So you're saying that they all basically started out being called CCGs, right?
Yeah.
Collectible card games. Okay. And so they just changed the name just to avoid the stigma, basically.
Yep.
Okay. So basically nothing's changed.
Yeah, pretty much. There's no difference.
So yeah, I mean, again, being a late bloomer, like to me, it's all semantics, especially now being in the digital age.
Yep.
Being the digital age that we are. Yeah, I have not seen that much difference. Okay. So there's probably three big ones that I would venture to guess a lot of people think of when they think of a trading card game,
big three,
or a collectible card game, and that is Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh.
Oh man.
And you have experience. You've played all of them, right?
Yes, I've played every single one.
Okay.
I started Pokemon back in '99 collecting them. I had no clue how to play it until recently.
You don't have any first editions, do you?
Maybe like random common ones, but nothing too crazy.
Okay, so have you seen, I don't know if we've talked about this yet, but for those of you who don't know, a first edition Charizard
is a lot.
Mint condition can go for upwards of 350 grand.
Yeah. It's pretty much on par with the Black Lotus and Magic.
Well, I did see that recently. I don't know if it was recently, but there was a signed Black Lotus. Okay, signed, I guess. That's the big thing. Because I believe the artist of the Black Lotus did pass away. So that's
Christopher Rush.
That's why the spike.
Yes.
But the signed Black Lotus
I'm fairly
sold
certain
for
it's Christopher Rush.
Probably is. We can fact check later.
Yeah.
but fact check us if Jim is correct or not. It went for upwards of 700 grand.
Yeah.
I believe in an auction. I don't know if it was an auction or if it just got sold. But yeah,
it's probably an eBay auction.
I think probably. But I think unsigned they do go for $300,000. So that's a big chunk of change. But one thing that I did see recently, which I thought was very interesting, is you can own a share of a Charizard.
What? They have stock in Charizards?
They're starting to.
Wow.
I saw it. Of course, I saw it as an ad, but I did see it on Instagram. Like it was an Instagram ad.
Yeah.
So there was a Charizard, but then there was also a first edition box Pokemon.
Wow. And that you could get stock in.
Yes.
You're like, I want the top left corner of the box.
In the top left corner. There you go. For those of you that don't know, and I don't even know how I heard about this, but normally in boxes, I don't even know if I can say normally, but there's this weird thing that if you pick the top left card in a booster box, that usually has like the highest rarity card in that entire box. It's really, really weird.
So I know for Magic.
Do you even know where that came from?
So for Magic, this was actually true.
Was it really?
So kind of. I'll go over it. So in the leftmost row, because in their boxes, they have 3 different rows, right? Mm-hmm. In the last 4 packs is where you get your money card.
The last 4 packs.
The left side, the last 4 packs. And one of those 4 is the most expensive one. It was like that for a while. People were releasing info on their boxes. Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah. I hope they've changed it, but I still
because you still go for that.
I still go for the last 4. Yeah. Yeah. I see new boxes open. I'm like, all right, let me get this.
Dude, that's funny. That is too funny.
Yeah.
So, all right. So Jim, let's talk about our first experiences in TCGs, in a TCG and a CCG.
Okay.
Since you've got way more experience, I kind of want to hear what your first experience, and I since you have way more experience, this is definitely going to be a physical game versus digital.
Yeah. This is pretty much strictly paper.
So what was that for you? What was your first experience?
So my first one was Pokemon, but I had no clue how to play it.
Okay.
So, I mean, but pretty much no one knew how to play it back in the day.
Yeah, right.
And
right. because we were all collecting the cards because
it was Pokemon.
Because it was Pokemon. We played the Game Boy game.
Got to catch them all, right?
Got to catch them all. Played the Game Boy games.
Yep.
I played the Pokemon on the OG Game Boy, the original
I still
Game
do.
Boy. For real?
Yeah, I still
do you have the OG Game Boy.
I don't have the original one. I have a color.
Okay, well,
but I still have the original.
The Game
Pokemon
Boy Color is even more expensive than the original.
Is it
Game
really?
Boy. I'm pretty sure it is. Like collectibles, I think the Color is a more collectible item than the original Game Boy.
It also looks a lot better than the brick.
It does. Yes, it does. It does. I think the OG Game Boy is just cooler from like I'm gonna say from a nostalgia perspective, even though there's still a lot of nostalgia with the Color. But the Color, I mean, I remember when the Color came out, and that was just we were all like, dude, that is awesome. Finally, Color, like it was so cool. As opposed to the gray and green. Yeah, you know.
Yep.
So anyway,
I actually got my first Game Boy Color from my grandmother, and
really,
yeah. So she was pretty much the one who sent me down the road of loving Nintendo and Pokemon.
There you go.
I don't know if I never would have gotten that. I don't know if I'd be here right now.
Yeah, dude.
Honestly, it started with Pokemon, the cards.
I believe you, man.
You know,
I totally believe you. So yeah,
Pokemon.
Yes,
that was pretty great.
Yes, Pokemon.
So yeah, started that back in pretty much 99, 2000, collecting them for a while. And then I didn't get into a actual card game itself until Yu-Gi-Oh! In May 2002. It came out in March 2002.
So when you were into Pokemon, you weren't really playing the game. You were just collecting the cards.
Purely collecting.
Okay.
And then at that point, I believe I was playing the Game Boy games at that time.
Sure.
So I was collecting the cards and having the Game Boy games.
Okay.
So then go ahead about like 2-3 years later. It was my birthday. I got a Kaiba starter deck.
Kaiba?
Yes. Kaiba with the blue eyes white dragon, Dan.
Okay.
And yeah, it's like
okay. Oh, you're talking about a card.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
My bad. I thought you were talking about a completely different card game. My bad.
No. So the starter deck for Yu-Gi-Oh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, I've never played Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yep.
I have not played Yu-Gi-Oh yet. So
one day.
Yes. No, for sure. 100% one day. Yep. 100%.
So yeah, they came out with starter decks. It was Yugi, who's the main character.
Okay.
And Kaiba, who is pretty much the main protagonist.
Okay.
Pretty much. And so it was their two decks. I got Kaiba. I was super happy. Had 3 of my cousins over, and
was one of the cousins the one who you cheated at with everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, it was there. And
dude, every time you say cousin, I'm always gonna throw that in there.
Yeah, he was there. Yeah, that's him. And so
that's great.
All right. I'm gonna let you know something right now.
Okay.
So we only had one deck, right? When me and my 3 other cousins played.
Okay.
So we split it. We pretty much split it in half. Except we cheated to where we always had the blue eyes white dragon. who's like the most powerful creature, you know? Oh, so and yeah, that was with that same cousin. I cheated in other games. Let's not talk about it.
That's funny.
But before then, ever since like March or so, when it first came out, this is Yu-Gi-Oh! I was collecting cards from packs. I didn't really understand
For
it.
Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yes.
Okay.
And but I didn't have a deck until my birthday in May.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty cool.
Oh, and for Magic, I guess my Yu-Gi-Oh thing, I was playing, on and off throughout the years up until when did Kaladesh come out for Magic?
I don't know.
Like 7 years ago?
I don't know.
I'll say like 6 years ago, 5 years ago.
Is it really?
I think it's been that long.
Because Kaladesh, I believe, came out like right before I got into Magic.
Yeah, I want to say it's been like 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been some time, and I was pretty much playing Yu-Gi-Oh. I thought competitively.
Yeah, right.
But it definitely wasn't until I got into Magic competitively. I'm like, yeah, I was not playing Yu-Gi-Oh. And but
you mean like when you found out what competitive Yu-Gi-Oh was? Okay,
yes.
Yeah, right.
I dabbled a little bit, but
sure,
I wasn't putting nearly as much money into it as some people.
No, sure, I got you. So my first experience in a TCG or a CCG was Hearthstone.
Okay.
All right. So Hearthstone is a digital card game. Yes, and I do enjoy Hearthstone still.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot remember the last time I played it, but the biggest problem that I have with Hearthstone is the same problem that a lot of people have with Hearthstone is the RNG.
Yeah.
RNG stands, for those that don't know, RNG stands for random number game.
Random number generator.
Generator. I'm sorry. There we go. I was going to say, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But there is so much randomness now to Hearthstone.
Yep.
It's
originally it was more like an actual card game that you would play before, but then they were like, oh, wait a minute, we can start implementing more RNG factors into it because it's all digital.
Exactly. And because they leaned so heavily into the digitalness, I'll say, which, I mean, it's not a right thing or a wrong thing. It's just it's what they chose as a design. Yeah. And that's fine. I mean, as a designer, that's what they went with. Yeah, definitely. It is definitely different. And some people really enjoy that and love that, and some people don't. To me, that takes maybe not a lot of the skill out of it, but it takes a big chunk of the skill out of it for me and turns it into luck of the draw, randomness.
Yeah.
You know, whether you're going to win or not.
Yeah, so kind of going off on that a little bit more. So for card games, like physical card games, you really can't mess with the RNG outside of like, oh, I play this card to draw a card off the top of my deck.
Yeah, or roll a dice.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Right.
But for this, rather than searching your deck for a card or just taking the top random card, you still know what's inside your deck at that point, and that's as much randomness as it's going to get.
Right.
But for this, there are cards out there. It's called Discover. There's a mechanic called Discover, and you can find any specific card that tells you.
I remember when Discover came out as a mechanic.
Yeah. So you can discover a card that's like, oh, I wouldn't really play this in the deck because it doesn't really go with it. Right. But in this case, it's ridiculously good.
Right, because wasn't Discover where it showed you 3 cards?
Yes.
It showed you 3 cards, and you just got to pick one.
Yeah, pretty much like 3 random cards.
Yeah. And so it was funny though, because like I played there's a priest deck that I played. I enjoyed the priest. That was fun for me.
The Dragon Priest?
No, it was not.
Oh, okay.
I did play Dragon Priest.
I love Dragon
Priest. Did play Dragon Priest, but it was not a Dragon Priest deck. I think eventually I did get onto a Dragon Priest deck. But before that, it was like, oh my goodness, I can't remember what it was. It was a crazy like OTK healer priest deck. It was really weird, but it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And for especially for a game like Hearthstone, it's like you can't really experiment a lot with the card pool being the way it is, and there's just so many. So like I would play it, and then I didn't play it for the longest time, and then I come back and be like, oh, let's go back to Hearthstone. Let's see what's changed. Let's see a little bit. And then, like, when you would do Discover or something, I would see these cards. I'd be like, what the heck are these? You know what I mean?
Yeah. You can discover a card that discovers another card, and you just get more value.
So it's so crazy. So, like, for a game like Hearthstone, especially when you're playing the wild format, which we'll talk about formats a little bit later, like, you never know, especially when you're not staying up on it, you can totally get lost so stinking quickly.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. So with their game, so in normal card games, you can get an errata, which is pretty much just like either change the text of a card to make it a little bit more balanced.
Right.
But for this, they can easily change the cost of a card, change the effect by a little bit. Right. And they tend to do this quite a bit. So
especially with the digital card games from a balancing standpoint. Yeah. Like Legends of Runeterra is a big one that I'm thinking about, that they balance it like every month or something like that, and they change costs and stuff like that.
And that's how it is with like most video games. If it's online and it's like, oh, we need to fix this because it's a little too broken, change it a little bit. Right. So,
but you can't really do that with the paper cards.
Yeah,
because
they've
already manufactured them. They've sent them out. So you can't really make a change like that. Yeah. And that's why they go through so much testing and playtesting and playtesting and more playtesting.
And stuff still slides on through.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Okay. So before we get into really talking about the barriers, one question I do want to ask you, you love card games, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
We both love card games.
Although I think I prefer card games more so because of hanging out with people.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is going to be why? Why do you love card games? Like, what is it about card games that you love so much?
So, going back to what I've learned from video games and my favorite genre, MMOs, there is theory crafting.
Okay. Go into what theory crafting is.
So for whatever it is, right? Say you're playing a cleric, right? And
a cleric, for those of you that don't know, cleric is a class of character.
Yeah, it is pretty much a healer or a melee DPS or damage per second. And so for that, you can have, say, a skill tree. And it's like, all right, how do I want to build this cleric? I want to build it protection. I want to build it holy. I want to build a shadow cleric, right? So you can
building a shadow cleric, and wow, weren't you playing a shadow cleric?
It was a shadow priest.
Okay, because I remember a video that you made. Okay,
yeah, so I was kind of mixing up games. All right, so we'll just say priest. We're talking about WoW. And
sorry.
So shadow priest, you're able to have different abilities and its skill tree. So it could be like, all right, this one specifically is for single target damage. This one is instead for AoE damage, which is area of effect, hitting multiple creatures.
Right.
This one's more for self-sustain, so more healing on yourself. And you only really get one of these choices inside the different level tier tree.
Right.
So at like level 15, you get to pick one of these 3 choices. Right. And mix and matching all of those different pieces along with the gear. And then depending on what you're teamed up with, say it's for player versus player, you're grouping up with friends to go fight other real people. It's like, all right, what works well with a shadow priest? We got different kind of healers, other kind of different damage dealers, and it's just combining a lot of different things. So that's, and theory crafting is pretty much that, and just trying to figure out what works best for you and what works best overall.
Right. Right. Theory crafting is a nice thing to talk about, especially when we're talking about card games, because that totally gets into deck building.
Exactly. It merges right over.
100%. And we're going to be talking a lot about deck building definitely shortly. Okay, so for me, I don't really know how to answer this question of why I love card games. But ever since I started playing Hearthstone, and now granted, I haven't played Hearthstone. I have not touched Hearthstone in freaking years. Like it's been a hot minute since I've played Hearthstone. Yeah. But I have played if it says card game, I want to play that.
Have you played Shadowverse? Oh, I love that one too.
I have played Shadowverse.
I love the evolve mechanic in there.
Shadowverse is fun. Shadowverse, there's so many card games that I feel like anytime I play a card game, I'm just like, yep, I like it. I like it, and sign me up for more.
Right.
But
it's also a curse.
It is. It is. And so for me, I think card games just appeal to my personality, and they just appeal to me as a person, I feel like. Like being an engineer, and the way that a lot of engineers think that I know, we're very logical, very strategic. And one thing that I like about card games is when I'm playing card game with people, and they ask, what does this card do? Read the card. What does the card say? And then they read the card, and then they still have questions. It's read the card. Nope. It says when, not whenever. Or
when this happens.
Yes. It's very, very specific. Yeah. I'm a very specific and particular person. And especially Magic, because Magic has been around so long, they have really nailed their what's the term? Templating? I think that's the word I'm looking for. Templating. They have nailed that. They've nailed it so very well. And it's very, to me, it's very self-explanatory. And I can read it, and I can totally understand what the effect is, what it does. And it's not necessarily easy for me to explain it to people because I'm not a teacher. My wife is a teacher. She can explain things a lot easier to people more than I can. The way that I explain it to people is the way that I would understand it. And usually when I do that, people still don't understand it. So I don't try because I'm not very good at it. Like I know what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And teaching is something I'm not very good at. So that's usually that's why, like when we're playing card games.
I've taught a couple people Magic.
Yeah. Like when we're playing card games, I'm just like, well, read the card. It says it right there. Like just read it. And then like if somebody, like I said, if somebody has a question, it's like, no, that's not what it says.
Yeah.
That is not what the card says. And I say that, and this is actually kind of funny because my son is mini me. Okay, he is mini me. I'm just gonna start calling him mini me.
Okay,
but he raising him is a challenge, and it's fun because it's like it's trying to raise me. I've had conversations with my parents. I'm like, how'd you do that? Like, how was I? Can you like give
how
me
do
some
I deal with myself?
Yeah, how do I deal with myself? Right. But there was one thing he did not that long ago where I think his sister was doing something. It was she was playing with a toy. She wasn't playing with a toy the right way. Like it was one of her dolls, and she took a piece of clothing off the doll and she put it somewhere else on the doll. Like she used a dress as a hat or something.
Okay.
And my son was just like, no, that's not how it's supposed to go. That's not how it's supposed to go. And my wife is telling this to me, and I go, I mean, he is right. And that's me.
Change my mind.
Like that's me. Like I'm very particular, and I'm like, if that's not the way it's supposed to go, then that's not the way it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
So I think that really is a big reason of why card games just appeal to me so much.
Yeah.
So, all right. So with all of that being said, let's jump into some barriers. Here, barrier number 1, jargon and terminology.
Oh man, this is a big one.
This is a big one.
It's something we honestly don't even think about anymore.
Now, right. We don't think about it anymore. But when I first, again, being a late bloomer and first getting into this, dude, I was so confused when I'm digging into it and doing research into what decks I want to play, what decks I want to build, or even just trying to get better. It's usually like looking into how do you get better.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I heard the term ramp, I was like, what the heck does that mean? I was watching a streamer, and at the time I was playing the Elder Scrolls card game. Elder Scrolls Legends is what it's called.
Okay.
They've abandoned it now. I mean, it's still a thing, but they're not developing on it. They are not actively developing the game anymore. So I was watching a streamer play, and I think they said ramp. So I type in chat. I'm like, what is this ramp? What does this mean? And so the streamer was very nice and like actually explained it to me, and I went, oh, that totally makes sense. So Jim, what does ramp mean?
Oh man. So in these games, we'll talk about Magic.
Sure.
This also does apply to other card games,
right.
But yeah. So for Magic, every single turn, you can pretty much play one land card, and it gives you mana. With mana, you can then use that to play your cards.
Mana in Magic is your resources.
Yes, it's your main resource. And what ramping is, well, you play a card that gives you more of that resource, essentially. So say you go to turn 2, you have 2 land out on the field, and you play a card that lets you play another land. So on turn 2, essentially, you have 3 lands.
Yeah. So in most card games, whether that be paper or digital, you can acquire 1 resource per turn normally.
Yep.
In normal card games, that you get turn 1, you get 1 resource. Turn 2, you get another resource. Turn 3, you get another resource. With Magic, you have to have your resources in your deck, so you have to hope you draw into your resources. But in a lot of digital card games, that you automatically get a resource.
Yep.
So with ramping, it's you get that extra quote unquote resource early.
Yep.
So instead of having 2 resources on turn 2, you have the ability to produce 3 resources.
Yep.
That's pretty much what ramp is. And so the first time I heard it, I was just so confused because I didn't know what it means. And that me being me, it annoys me when terms are thrown around and I have no idea what they mean. Like I feel like an idiot. I do. I honestly feel like an idiot when I have no idea what these terms mean.
Yeah.
So
you're like, I should be in this circle, but I don't know everything.
Right. So one other thing that I have written down here is card advantage. Card advantage pretty much happens in every card game.
Yep.
Right. So Jim, why don't you explain what card advantage is?
So for card advantage, it pretty much stems off of who has more cards in their control. It could either be on the field, in the hand, or also just like left in deck. Because sometimes when you're getting into the later games, having no cards in deck can be really detrimental.
Right.
So it's pretty much like, all right, my opponent is playing things and they have like a more board presence, but they only have 3 cards in their hand, but I have 7 cards in my hand.
Right.
So I now have more things to interact with their stuff.
Right.
And but there are also other cards where it's like, all right, I play one card to get 2 cards. So now that one card gave you a +1 in advantage.
It netted you one card.
Exactly.
It netted
so
you
it
plus
replaced
one card.
itself
Right.
and gave you another.
Right. Yeah, and so typically when in card games, when a card that replaces itself in your hand can be referred to as a cantrip.
So I have a little bit of a funny story about card advantage.
Okay.
So when I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh, probably like 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I was playing a burn deck, right?
Of course you're playing a burn deck.
Yeah, I've been playing burn in Yu-Gi-Oh since 07. Leave me alone, all right? So, and I guess every single game as well. I play burn in everything. So they were talking about how they had like more card advantage, and people on the side would be talking about like how I was closer to losing. Except for me, you can have all the card advantage you want, but if I bring your life to 0,
correct,
I don't care.
Correct.
Yep. So card advantage is a great thing.
Correct.
But it means nothing if you lost the game.
Totally. Right. And one thing that I think a lot of newer players in card games forget is your life is a resource.
Yeah.
Your life totally is a resource. If you have 1 life and your opponent has 0, doesn't matter. You just won. It doesn't matter if you have 20 life or 1 life.
A wise man once said, it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile.
Correct.
Winning is winning.
Correct. So all right. So in card games, like the gameplay terms and the mechanics can vary slightly, but a lot of the terms and jargon and terminology are universal. Like ramp and card advantage are 2 big ones.
Yeah.
That are pretty.
Tutor.
Yep. Tutor.
We're going to go over a couple.
Yeah. Tutor. I don't think we're really going to talk about tutor. So what does tutor mean?
Oh, so normally, whenever you're playing the game, you draw for every single one of your turns, except the card is essentially random.
Right.
For tutor.
Right.
For tutor, you get to go through your deck and search for a specific card that you want.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the reason it's called tutor now because of Magic? Or did they call it tutor?
So Magic was the original one because it came out back in 93.
Right.
So with the old tutors, Vamp Tutor, I believe it was.
Vampiric Tutor, sure.
Yeah. And they then started coming out with more tutors.
Right, like
and
Demonic Tutor.
Yeah, and Pokemon didn't really have that effect.
Okay.
And Pokemon came out in Japan in 96 and the US in 90.
Right.
And by that time, you're looking at, well, Magic has been going for 60 years.
Right.
And they've already had multiple tutor effects. So it's been like that for pretty much since all this stuff has been happening.
So it's called tutor because of Magic, right?
Yeah.
Now, do you know, I don't know this, maybe you know, and if not, I want to look this up.
Okay.
But was there a reason they called the cards tutors?
I have no clue.
Okay. I'm kind of interested to know.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there are some things, words have meanings, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like you can see like in some Magic cards that the meanings of why they called cards what they called them.
Yep.
So I'm just wondering if there's like a meaning, whether it be hidden or not, of to why a tutor is called a tutor, and you get to go find whatever you want. Yeah, a type thing. So
before I started playing Magic and knew about the tutor effect, when I would be playing Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments, so for pretty much my entire time, people would just play a card that would go search. They would say search, except eventually it started leaning towards people saying, oh, I'm going to go tutor for this.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm like, what is that?
Right, sure.
I had no clue about the tutor effect. And they're like, oh, it's from Magic. I'm like, I don't play Magic. I'm not going to say that.
Right, sure, sure. Because now anytime, that's funny. Because now in any card game that I play, if the card says search your deck or search, my mind immediately goes to, I'm gonna go tutor.
Yeah, I still say search sometimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
it's funny
because it's habit.
Yeah, it's funny. It's kind of funny how that works. Because really, it does just go back to your experience and what you've played.
The card might not even be called tutor. It's just like go search for something.
Exactly. If I see in a card game it says go search, my mind is saying tutor. Yeah. I'm gonna tutor for this. I can't remember. I was playing a game. I don't know who I was playing with or what we were playing, but they had to go search through their deck and find a card, and I just said, "All right, yeah, you're gonna go tutor for this." it just comes out. It's weird.
Yep.
So anyway, So we're still into jargon and terminology, but another barrier is deck archetypes. So I mean, deck archetypes could be kind of separate, but I think they really do fit under the the jargon and terminology.
So real quick, going over the list that we have, there's something missing.
I'm sure that there is.
Why isn't there burn on here, Dan? I don't see burn on here.
I don't know. I don't know if burn is a legitimate archetype, Jim.
It is. It is, Dan.
All right. So okay, Jim, can you explain for us what is, in your simplest terms, how would you describe a deck archetype? What is an archetype, a deck archetype?
So it's honestly, it's pretty simple. It really comes down to the overall theme of the deck, right? So it can either be based off of what the type is. So another term, tribal. Okay, so it could be humans. It could be. I'm having a blank right now. We're gonna edit this out.
No, so a good description, not description, but oh goodness, what is the word I'm looking for? One form of tribal. My first experience in a tribal deck.
Oh yeah, slivers too.
Slivers. Okay.
There's so many zombies. I don't know why I couldn't think of dragons. There's so many different things.
And what do you mean? So what do you mean when you say tribal? What is a tribal deck?
So normally when you're making a deck, right, you can be playing a bunch of different cards that are just good. For tribal specifically, you're using cards that state all pretty much dragons only inside the deck, and cards that work with dragons. Or same with zombies, humans, whatever it is.
Yeah, in a lot of card games, most card games, a lot of the cards have like what kind of card it is, what type of card it is.
Yeah.
For Magic specifically, the cards have like a type, and then they have subtypes.
Yeah.
Right? So for a dragon deck specifically, depending on how you build your deck, you could say, oh, this deck is a dragon deck, meaning I have all dragons. Like all of the creatures in the deck are dragons.
Yep.
My experience actually with my first experience with a tribal deck, this could be considered a tribal deck, was again playing Hearthstone. I was looking on a website trying to find like what kind of decks to build, what kind of decks to play. And I saw this term a lot, Zoolock. I went, what the heck?
That's aggressive there.
I went, what the heck is that? Yeah. Zoolock is a creature-based warlock deck.
Yep.
So if you don't know, in Hearthstone, you get to basically you pick a character, and your character determines what your card pool will consist of.
Yep. There are generics and specifics.
There are generic cards and specific cards for each of these different characters. And one of the characters in Hearthstone is the warlock. Okay. So the reason it's called a zoo deck was the deck was all creatures.
Yep.
You could have in Hearthstone and in a lot of card games, you have your different cards. You could have creature cards. You could have spells. You could have enchantments, instant sorceries. There's so many different types of cards that are available to you.
Yep.
So in this specific deck, the Zoolock, it meant it was a warlock deck that is full of just all creatures.
And most of the time it is low drop. So low cost.
Low cost, meaning the cost of the card is like 1 cost, 2 cost.
Yeah.
Maybe at max it might cost 3.
Yeah.
Because there are cards that can cost 6, 7, maybe
all the way
8.
Up to 10.
Actually,
all the way up to 25.
What?
Yeah. The giants.
Oh yeah, and then those get reduced. They get reduced.
Yeah.
Right. So when I first saw Zoolock, I'm like, what in the world? And the Zoolock is a tribal deck.
Yes.
Because again, the tribe being it's all creatures.
Yep.
So
it wants to beat you down fast, which is aggro.
So so I'm gonna quickly go through a list here that I've written down. This is definitely not an exhaustive list by any means.
There's so many.
There are so many. So aggro, aggressive, like we said, there's tempo, there's control, there's token, there's combo, there's mid-range. What else can you think of off the top of your head that's not here besides burn?
Nope, nothing.
Nothing? Okay. All right. But there really are a lot. I mean, I think these are probably some of the biggest ones. And so yeah, it's basically like, what is your deck trying to do, and kind of how does it fit into
so the main three also is aggro, control, and mid range.
Yes.
So think about it in terms of a line, right? You have aggro on one end, which you want to be really aggressive, and you have control all the way at the other side, which is I want to play slow. I want to stop what you're doing, not so much beat you down before like turn 3.
Right.
Right. And everything in between is, pretty much mid range, essentially.
Right.
Which mid range is I want to play low cost creatures that are really strong, but I also want to stop what it is that you're doing.
Right.
So there is, and pretty much everywhere in between, you can find something that it is you're looking for.
Right. Right. And we'll get into this literally in a second, but I like how you use the line thing, because that really kind of does come into play here.
Yep.
But before we get into that, Jim, I know the answer to this, but what are your favorite archetypes?
Woo! So I am on both ends of this spectrum here.
Yes, you are.
I really don't like to play in between, honestly. I am either full aggression with my burn list, or I am playing control.
Yep, 100%.
Yep.
Most of the time, in the times that we've played, which is a lot, you've gone towards the control.
Yeah,
the control-y side.
Yeah, that's for commander though. Like
yes,
it's complete.
That's true.
Playing aggression.
Well, we played modern that one time.
Oh,
literally that one time.
Well, I mean, like my main modern deck is burn, which is
really?
Full aggro. Yeah, kill them by turn 3.
Okay. I get, you know what, we were just testing out some other decks, I guess. So yeah, that's true. Okay. All right. So what would you guess mine is?
Mid range.
Yeah.
Simple.
It really is. And the reason I would say my favorite archetype is mid range is because I'm very, as we've said before, I'm very mana efficient, resource efficient. I'm all about the resources and the value. And that's my play style.
Which don't think that mid range can be a fast deck
or a control deck.
Yeah. So like mid range can use lower cost creatures to keep up with the aggro decks, right? But you're not more so looking to kill them before they can kill you.
If you have no idea what we're talking about and you are so confused, it's okay. It is okay. Every single one of us were there.
Yeah.
And so that's honestly the reason we're doing this episode, is to kind of get you nudged in the right direction a little bit. Both of us have, I remember when I was first getting into this, I was so confused and did so much research. Even mid-range, for the longest time, I'm like, okay, what in the world does mid-range even mean? And for mid-range, basically the simplest way that I probably could describe it is mid-range decks, normally the way that they're built is they're built so that you can compete with aggro decks in the early game, and you can also compete with control decks in the late game.
Yep.
So it's very widespread, I guess. It's not the word I'm looking for.
It has a wide variety of ways.
Variety. There we go. That's what I'm looking for.
And when you start going into, so normally in a match, there are 3 games, right? In your first game.
Now time out. Is that in like pretty much every card game?
Pretty much.
Really?
Pretty much.
Okay, cool.
There are, so for Vanguard, Cardfight Vanguard, it is another card game. And a lot of their tournaments are best of 1.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh, interesting.
The
first time I saw best of 1 in card games was Arena. MTG Arena.
Yeah.
Okay.
But normally it is a best of 3. And with it being a best of 3, you have access.
Sense.
You have access to something called a side deck. Yep. So you have your main deck and then a side deck of 15 cards so in between each game, you're able to take out some cards, put in some new cards that you're like, well, these are really good against the aggro matchups,
right.
But I don't want to play it in the main deck. So I throw it over there. And when I know I'm versing them, we're going to bring those cards in, take out cards that aren't good against them.
In the matchup.
And then be able to have a better matchup.
For sure. Yeah. Side deck / sideboard. Again, that's another term that I was like, what? No, what is this? Yeah. But it's cool. Like, it's another like aspect to card games that is kind of cool. Like the other thing too, maybe not, but what I was kind of thinking was, and this is definitely not the case because paper card games have been around much longer than digital, But again, being a late bloomer, I feel like sideboards kind of bring a digital aspect to paper card games because again, just based off of my experience and being more into learning on the digital card games. But I mean, it's super easy to implement in paper card games, paper Magic, because again, it's just you have 15 normally cards that you can just play.
Could you imagine having Discover and Magic? You're just like, I got 10,000 cards next to me. I picked this random one, this random one.
But the thing is, that's still even crazy in Hearthstone because now they're to the point to where, I mean, I don't want to know what the card pool is for Hearthstone. Yeah. It's got to be
Well, if we're talking about standard, it's purely for Discover. It's purely standard cards.
Really?
Yeah.
You can't, when you're playing the wild format, you can't discover?
No. I'm saying, so if you play Discover in standard, you only discover
standard
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. You can discover cards that are legal in the format that you're playing. Okay, cool. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so you just kind of talked about this line, okay?
Yes.
This brings me to my next barrier to entry here, and that's mana curve. The first time I heard mana curve, I was like, okay, again, what the heck are you talking about? So Jim, and I do like how you used a line as an explanation of the different archetypes. So can you kind of give us a brief explanation of what we mean when we say mana curve?
Yeah, so for Magic and other card games that do use different cost of cards.
And again, the reason it's called mana is again because of Magic.
Exactly. It's been here since
93.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think June of 93.
Yes, June.
And so if we're looking at the deck in a line, you take all the cost of your cards that have 1 mana in it, right?
Yep.
So a single mana drop, you put it pretty much all right next to each other. So you have 10 cards. All right, how many cards in the 2-drop slot do we have? All right, it's now 8. You can start to see it slowly drop. And then when we get to 3-drop cards, we now have 5. So you can start to see this little bend as we're like, all right, we have a lot of early game cards. And then more so going into the mid game, which I guess is more terminology to be going over.
Yeah, right.
And
that's good. Yes, true. Very true.
And then more cards of like, all right, well, now we're playing a few more 5 drops, maybe 1, maybe 2, 6, 7 drops.
And when you say drop, that
cost.
What we mean when we say drop is the cost.
Yeah. So pretty much the turn you can drop it. Like how much mana does it cost to drop this card?
Right. And so when you when you put all those together, you're making a bar graph.
Yes.
You are making a bar graph and then you are connecting all those points to form a curve. So then you just look at the shape of the curve.
Yep.
And so a lot of times in these different archetypes, the mana curve in these archetypes for these decks, they look very similar. So if you see an aggressive deck, a very aggro heavy aggressive deck, the mana curve for these aggro decks is basically kind of like how Jim was just describing here.
A lot more 1-drops.
Right. So your mana curve is going to be heavily skewed to the left.
Yep.
So it's going to be very high at the low bottom of the curve, the 1s and the 2s, and then peter off towards the higher. And typically, from my understanding, and all the research and reading into the stuff that I've done, a lot of control decks, they're kind of like very flat curved. The curve is kind of relatively flat.
Yeah. So with the control deck, if you have too many high drop cards, though, you are going to get pretty much stomped by the aggressive decks because say you're doing nothing for the first 3 turns.
Right.
They've now played like 3 creatures or 6 creatures in between there.
Which happens like if you do nothing on turns 1 through 3, you're dead.
Pretty much.
There's so many times. So for a little bit of backstory here. So Magic Arena is now available on phones, on mobile.
Yep.
So I downloaded it a couple of weeks ago and I'm able to play it on my phone, which is cool, which is very, very cool. Like now I'm just able to get a quick game in every now and then. If I've got nothing to do or I'm, sitting, waiting around for something. Very, very cool. Finally bringing Magic to mobile is very cool. But one thing with MTG Arena is, and honestly, it does not matter what lobby you are in. mono red is crazy.
It's always a
so
thing.
many people play mono red all the time. And it gets old so many times. It's
take it back, Dan.
I will never take it back. But I mean, mono red is a legitimate archetype. It 100% is a legitimate archetype.
It's fast.
It is. It is very, very fast. And if you want to ladder up very quickly, mono red is your most efficient way to do that.
Yep.
Period. End of story. I mean, there's no questioning it.
Yep.
None. But I'm the type of player to where I normally, even when I was doing my YouTube channel, I liked playing so many different styles of decks. So when you play match after match after match of mono red,
yep,
it's crazy. I mean,
you then have to start building. It's like, all right, I want to build this cool new deck, but can it beat mono red?
Right? Can it even compete? With mono red, because I don't just want to lose. And so like I've been playing a control deck because I enjoy playing control decks on arena. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's if I don't do anything on turn 1, 2, or 3, I'm dead.
Pretty much.
Even if I don't do anything on the first 2 turns.
Yep.
It's like
you're still at like really low life, and it's like they can just get over the top.
And then they Ember Cleave, and then I'm dead.
Yep. Swinging in for like 18 damage.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I mean, it is a legitimate archetype, 100%. It's just it can be. I'm not going to say overbearing, but just not fun to play against.
Yeah, the thing about it is like it's kind of boring because you just know exactly what it's going to do. You see them drop a mountain, you're like, all right, here comes a fervent champion.
Yep.
Or whatever it is, you know?
Right.
And it's
in April of 2021, that's turn 1 fervent champion. That's what we're saying. Turn 1 mountain fervent champion, that's like it.
Pretty much. And then turn 2, drop another one and swing for 4.
Just swing for 4. Yeah. What's the other one where I know we're talking about Magic right now, but goodness, there's I can't remember if it's 1 drop or 2 drop, but if it gets equipped or when it dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target.
Oh, I believe it's a 2 drop.
It is 2 drop. It is a 2 drop.
Yeah. Well, there could be a few cards like that. The one I'm thinking of, it's a 2 drop. It's in red and black, so Rakdos, which I guess is more
no. The one that I'm thinking of is mono red. It was in Zendikar, but I can't remember. It is a mono red card.
All right, then this is a different one.
Okay. So, all right, cool. Okay, the next barrier, again, this really is all jargon and terminology. It's kind of crazy.
Oh, so also for Magic, you have 5 different colors, right?
Yes.
You have white, blue, black, red, and green. Okay. And more terminologies here. Okay. Every single one of these colors, when they pair up with something else, is now called a different name.
Yes.
So when you pair up 2 colors with each other, let's just say white and blue, it's called Azorius.
Yep.
And that is based off of the guild that comes from Ravnica in one of the sets called Azorius.
Yep.
And this happens for every single color pattern.
Yep.
And same thing with 3 colors.
3 colors. Yep.
If you put white, blue, and then black as well, it is now called Esper.
Yep.
And that was the worst thing for when I started playing Magic.
Yes.
That was
every
terrible.
Card game. But that's the thing. It's every card game for the most part.
Yeah.
That's it. Like you have to learn
but
all
this
these.
is a specific name for the colors you play.
Do you know the 4 color? Do you know the 4 color names?
No, I don't. Witchmaw? Witchmaw's one, I think.
I think Yor is one of them. I do believe Yor is a name for one of them.
I don't think so.
I think so. So okay. One thing that when I looked into this, I believe with the 4 color names, there's like 2 names. I think there's like 2 names. Like they can be referred to as one thing or the other. I can't remember.
So you can also call them. So in Magic, there's a thing called mono, right? So we went over mono red.
Yeah.
Okay.
That means the deck is all red.
Yes. So mono, but you change the first letter of mono to an N. It's called nano. And then you say nano green. So I'm playing all of the other 4 colors.
All the other 4 colors.
Or if I'm playing nano red, that one I think is Witchmaw or Witch something.
Yeah, and I do know that Witch is a name, like it's in one of the names. I do know that. But I know all of the 2 color and 3 color combinations.
Yeah. Those are the important ones.
They are.
The other ones don't really matter.
But so the first time I actually came across that was when I was playing Elder Scrolls Legends.
Okay.
So that's the same thing. That's the same thing where they have different colors for the cards. And so with Magic, like each color, like has its own thing of like what it does in the
There's a
lore of the
theme to it.
universe. There's a
Yeah.
theme. So when I was playing Elder Scrolls Legends, it's the same thing. Like they had from my remembrance, they had like white, they had purple, which was like black for magic. They had green, they had what else do they have? They had like yellow and blue. I think those were the colors that they had. But that was the same thing to where when you started pairing these things up and you had the different the colors and the combinations, you had different names. So I was trying to learn those. I have no idea what they are anymore because I haven't played that game in forever.
Yeah.
But that's another thing to where okay, now I have to learn all this stuff.
Yep.
I remember
More to it.
I was in a Discord group. It was not a Discord group, but it was like a website. I think we were on Discord too.
Okay.
But like I put together like an Excel spreadsheet with all the different color combinations to help other people learn.
Yeah.
Like if they didn't know what they were. So, but that 100%, that's another barrier.
Yeah.
It's another thing that you got to learn for the most part.
What's your favorite color combo?
Really? Didn't we already go over this?
Look, I'm asking for the people here.
All right. Sultai.
Just give us the
Sultai in Magic. Sultai is my favorite color combination. Yeah. I think it is the best color combination in all of Magic. And Sultai is black.
It is really good.
Sultai is black, green, and blue. If I had to pick one color, I would pick green. Green is my favorite color just in general. I do love green. But
all right, guys, I'm out of here. All right, it was fun. I'll talk to you later, Dan.
But green probably is one of the best colors in Magic.
What about two colors?
Two colors.
What's your favorite guild?
Probably Golgari.
Okay.
Not Simic.
Good. I'm glad.
Not Simic. I do like Simic, but I would probably say Golgari is probably my favorite.
That one's really good. That one's really good value too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And you know me, that's pretty much what I'm about.
Yep.
All right. What about your favorite? What's yours?
All right. We're going to start with favorite mono color.
Okay.
All right. It's going to be weird. Okay.
No, it's not.
I don't think you're going to know it.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
It's blue.
I mean, I can't say I'm surprised, but
yeah. So if we're talking about in terms of Commander, my favorite one is mono blue.
Okay.
Or like anything else, mono red.
Okay.
And
so Commander specific.
Yes.
You're saying blue. Okay.
Yes.
I got you.
If I had to go with a mono one, it'd be that.
I gotcha. Okay.
So favorite dual color.
Yep.
I actually was thinking about this. I was thinking about like all the different kinds of colors that go with my favorite tricolor. All right.
Okay.
So if we were to take one of the colors out of my favorite tricolor, which is Grixis.
Yes.
Black, red, and blue.
Yes. Grixis is fantastic.
Yeah. So if we took out the blue, what would adding green or adding white do to that color combo? So black, red, and then green, or black, red, and white. And it comes down to my favorite dual color is black and red, which I honestly thought it was blue and red.
Really?
Yeah, I thought it really was.
No, well, so did I. Like that would have made sense to me. Like if you would have said that, I would have gone with that.
Yep. And then favorite color is Grixis. Shout out to our boy Nicol Bolas.
Nicol Bolas.
Yep.
All hail Nicol Bolas.
Yep. May he rest in the that weird realm
wherever
place.
he is.
Yeah, I don't know. He's like imprisoned.
I don't even. There have been so many great Nicol Bolas cards.
Oh, I know.
They're like crazy good.
Did you see the 4-drop that turns into the Planeswalker on the back? He's like $100 playset right now.
Yeah,
it's
he
like,
is.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm glad I had 4 of those bad boys.
And then the latest one, the 5-drop. And it man,
Again.
Dan's dropping stuff.
You can't really hear it though, which is good.
Yeah.
Which is good.
So
I
the 5-drop.
got excited. I got excited. I get a little bit excited when we talk about.
He's able to copy every other Planeswalker.
Did you
abilities.
see? Okay. Oh my goodness. There was. I can't remember for the life of me, but I was playing Arena on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I had I had the 4-drop Nicol Bolas flipped.
Yeah.
I had him flipped on board.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then I had 5-drop Nicol Bolas on board.
Yeah.
And then there was another Planeswalker that I had that could kind of do the same thing that the 5-drop Nicol Bolas did about copying other abilities. Can't remember which one it was. And I was playing Grixis.
I didn't even know there was another one. I just thought it was Bolas.
It was something like that. Now I'm gonna have to pull up that deck and find it. But like I had 4 Planeswalkers on board. Right. My opponent, rest his soul, did not concede and let me actually play.
Man.
So
That guy's a trooper.
I kept drawing cards, and it was pretty fun.
Yeah.
It was pretty fun. I do Grixis. Nicol Bolas is like the reason to play Grixis.
So,
all right. Okay.
I could talk about Nicol Bolas all day. Grixis. All right.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Give me one more good story.
So for Grixis, right? When I was first learning the color wheel and all that stuff,
Yep.
and I was asking my friend, the guy who got me into Magic,
Okay.
and I'm like, hey, what is this color? Because I was playing red and blue.
Okay.
And I was like, what is, after learning what all the colors do, and I really wanted to mess with my opponents more, I was like, what if we throw black in there, right? What is that color? And he was like, oh, that's Grixis. It was the first one I memorized for like the color wheels and all their names.
Right.
And I started making a Grixis control. And I'm like, I just want to.
That's what I play.
I just want to upset people. I'm like, I don't care if I win. I just want to make them mad.
Yep. I love playing Grixis Control. Grixis Control is so versatile.
Yep.
So much fun. Like there's there is one deck that I have on Arena that is Grixis Control, and that is so much fun. Like Narset, not letting my opponent draw cards.
Yep.
All of the Nicol Bolases. Right, I've got the four Nicol Bolas, the 4-drop Nicol Bolas, where ETB discard a card from the hand, then you can flip them to. I think there's either isn't the plus draw 2 cards?
I think it might be.
No, it might be 3.
I don't remember.
It might be 3.
I don't know if it's that high. That
there's
seems
one
high.
of them that I think there's one of them that like
I don't know.
I don't know either. I can't remember. Okay, but then also the 5-drop Planeswalker Nicol Bolas that can do pretty much
that one
anything.
Copies any Planeswalker.
Any Planeswalker that's on board, you can do whatever their abilities are.
Yep. That one's draw a card and then your opponent exiles a card that they have, either in hand or on board.
Or on board, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the minus is
exile something.
Yes, it is. It is exile any permanent, I think. No. It's exile. I think it's exile I think it's exile creature or planeswalker. I think that's what it was.
Probably.
I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Anyway, we could talk about this for a long time, and we will. And we will later.
Yeah.
But not in this episode.
You know what? Let's talk about the metagame.
Yeah. All right.
Let's go past all of this stuff that we can talk about.
That is the next barrier that we're going to talk about. And again, really, it is just jargon and terminology. What the heck?
The metagame is always shifting.
But what is it? That's the thing. Like, what is it? The first time I heard the term metagame, again, me being me, I go crazy when I don't know what someone's talking about.
Tell us, because you brought this up to me the other day. You Googled or something like that. You Googled what meta is. Go ahead and tell us the definition.
So when I was researching what the metagame is, everything that I kept finding, the way that it was explained was the metagame is the game within the game. And again, for me, I want to understand. So I didn't understand it. I'm like, okay.
And honestly, from that, it doesn't make sense for card games.
It doesn't. But once I really understood what it meant, and in the conversations around card games in general, and then the term being thrown around, that explanation does make sense.
Yeah. Okay.
So what the metagame really means is, I'm going to use our group that we play Commander with.
Okay.
I'm going to use that as an example. So me and Jim, we have a group that we play Commander with pretty regularly. Okay. And so there's one person in our group who plays a certain deck a lot. He enjoys the deck, and that's totally fine. So when we're playing, a lot of the times, the first time we play, we know what deck he's going to play.
Yeah.
So the deck that we bring out usually is going to be in response to that deck. That deck is Golos. Okay?
Yeah.
Golos Tireless Pilgrim. Yeah. It is a fantastic.
This is more so for you.
Yeah, probably.
Because in the other podcast, you were like, I always have to build a deck that I know can handle him.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. So, and it is his Golos deck is a very good deck. It is really good, and if left alone, he can destroy everyone at the table.
Yep.
He has multiple ways to win in that deck. It is a very, very good deck. Okay. So when we play, I know what I'm coming up against. Okay. So in this scenario, okay, what I'm describing is a metagame. Okay. So that is basically what game we are playing, right? So the game we are playing consists of a deck that is Golos, right? So we know Golos is going to be a part of that 4-player game.
Yep.
Okay. So this game is a version of Magic the Gathering, right? So this is a game within the overall larger picture game of Magic.
Yep.
It's kind of like Inception if you think about it.
The game within a game.
So again, that's where, like, honestly, the game within the game really is a perfect description and explanation for what the metagame is.
Yeah.
So that is one context of Magic the Gathering. There are tournaments for Magic the Gathering, like Modern, Standard, Pioneer. Okay. In that tournament, what are certain players going to bring to the table? What deck are they going to play?
What's a new up and coming deck, or what is one people have been playing, and there's statistics online.
That is the metagame. So the long and short of it, really, that's probably the best way that I can think of to describe what the metagame actually is. Because it's not like a concrete, consistent thing. It shifts and varies from time to time. And depending on the game and depending on the time of year, it is reliant on so many different factors.
Change is the only constant.
Right. So when you're playing a game, like when you're playing a game that is shifting and evolving as time goes on, like you kind of know how it's shifting and changing when you play it regularly. So it's something to where when you're playing it a lot, you really just don't think about. It's a way of just describing kind of what naturally happens with a game that rotates or shifts and just evolves. So when you really just sit down and think about it, it's kind of cool. It's like it's kind of like evolution, like evolving.
Oh, for sure.
It kind of is. It's really it's a cool concept.
Say a new set comes out, people want to be playing with these new cards, and they're like, "Oh, this is a really strong combo." Except now people are like, "Wait, but these other cards kind of stop those ones, and then that original one that everyone was playing kind of dies out in favor, and then then this new deck is the top one, and then people are like, wait a minute, this other way to build this other deck is an even better form than what that is, because now my cards have better value to them."
For sure. So that's pretty much what the metagame is, and I think that's a pretty good way of describing it. Do you have what do you have anything
that was very spot on?
So again, me being me, I did so much research into it and trying to figure out what it meant, and but yeah, like it's really cool. Like if you just sit down and think about it, it kind of is a cool concept just to sit down and kind of think about.
For sure.
All right, next barrier, deck building.
Oh man,
you kind of touched on it. When you were talking about theory crafting, but dude, especially for a new player to any card game, deck building is just so daunting. It's so it's hard to tackle. Some people just don't want to tackle it because they're like kind of scared. Which I get. Like that's me.
It's a difficult thing.
That's me. Because to me, deck building, you got to be creative. Like creativity is a big thing when you're talking about deck building. I mean, you enjoy building decks, don't you?
Oh, for sure. So
and I'm to the point now to where I do as well. But me, like, I am not very creative. As a general rule, I think every person is creative. Like every person has the capacity to be creative. But I think some people, creativity comes easier to them than other people. And I think I'm the type of person to where I have to work a little bit harder to be creative.
So for some of the different formats, right? And the most one I play is Modern, and
outside of Commander.
Yes. That one is like my pretty much go-to. It's my favorite one. And we'll talk about a little bit about the meta game, right?
Okay.
So say there's some of your favorite cards that you like to play with, but you can look up what some of the best decks are in the format, and there's not a single one playing it, right? All right, what's the reason on that? Is it just because there are no other cards that work well with it? Is it because it's too high of a cost? Or is it because, well, all the other decks are just way too good? Why is that card you want to bring to the table good in your perspective? right? Can you make it good? Can you build a deck around it? Is it something that's a higher mana drop? So then you have to start building a control deck in order to get to those end steps. And and that's where the whole deck creation thing comes from.
And building the whole deck around
yes,
that
exactly.
type of card.
Except it also comes down to you have to know the metagame. If you want to play competitively, you have to know where can I fit this in at.
So I'm gonna kind of boil that down even further. Don't know the metagame. Know your metagame.
That too.
Because really you have to know like what
I'm talking more from a like more competitive.
That's true. You did specify that. Right. So like if in this case you're talking about like tournament play, tournament viable, but depending on the scenario, like if you want to play it on your kitchen table commander or whatever, like I was talking about earlier with our group where we play, like Golos, can I fit this in to something to where I know what I'm going to come up against?
Yeah.
So like build with your meta like in mind type thing for sure. One thing that I do want to point out, deck building can be so rewarding. It is difficult. It is difficult for sure when you're just trying to build a complete and entire deck around an idea or a card. But when you finish it and it works, it's a beauty.
You know, it could work 1% of the time, but when it does work, you're so happy.
You are. And it's so cool. It's fun.
Yep.
And it really is. You feel that just sense of accomplishment. Power, accomplishment. And you could even do something just so measly like I just took out your thing, but I don't really care because it's so cool. My thing worked.
Yeah.
It worked. The thing that I built worked.
Yep.
It's cool. Like it is a fun experience. Okay, talking about net decking, this discussion happens all of the time, and it drives me absolutely bonkers and bananas.
Okay.
Net decking is fine.
Yeah.
Net decking is fine, especially for new players.
Oh, for sure.
Jim, what is net decking?
So net decking is you go online, you find a deck that won a tournament or won whatever event, and you build it. You just like go to eBay, go to Amazon, go to TCG Player, and you're like, I want all of these cards.
The nice thing about digital card games is when we're talking about building decks, so much easier.
Yep.
So much easier. Like in Arena, a lot of the times I already have the cards.
Yeah.
I already have the cards in my collection.
You have a lot of cards in there.
I have all the cards in my collection. And
my Arena collection is lackluster.
Yeah, granted, like I was
my physical though. Let's talk about that.
Granted, I was doing a Magic of the Gathering Arena video every single day.
Yeah, you had
so
a lot.
I had a lot of videos. So and honestly, a lot of those videos were net decked. I found a lot of those decks online that I was just looking, and there's so many decks just out there.
And it doesn't even have to be like tournament winning. It could just be someone posted a really cool deck and it's just like, I want to play this.
There was a mono white angels deck that I played. That deck was so much fun.
Yeah.
I looked at it and said, okay, I want to play this because this looks freaking awesome. And it was. It was fun.
I think I sent you a blue-red like copy list or something.
Yes, I played that one.
Yeah, that was amazing.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That video was great. I'm gonna post that video in the show notes to this so you guys can watch it.
Yeah, that one was awesome.
That was fun. And honestly, if you don't net deck, you are missing out.
Oh, for sure.
You are missing out on a lot of great decks. And a lot of this honestly comes back to what are you doing? Like, what is your point? Why are you playing? What's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah. Some people think it's a bad thing, right? Because it's just like, oh, well, you weren't creative enough to come up with it. But the thing is, you talk about how many different players there are. It is so difficult to come up with a creative idea, especially if you're like, oh, it's been 2 months since the latest set release. I found this really cool card. I made some decks. But then it's just like, oh, but someone made a better list of it. So I'm going to stop working on it. Right. It's just
and I see this so many times. People saying online, like, you were lazy, you net decker. It's like, dude, you know how, like, I don't have the time, man.
It takes a lot.
It does. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Because it's, okay, honestly, this is how coming up with a deck kind of works. It's you start with an idea. Okay. You find the cards that go along with your idea. Normally in Magic, constructed formats typically are 60 card decks, right? Yes. So when you're coming up with, when you're formulating your idea, normally you find all these cards and then your list is, okay, well now I have 100 cards. singles. I have 100 singles that now I have to figure out, okay, which ones kind of best work with the strategy that I want to employ in this deck. So you have to take the 100 cards, whittle it down to like 9.
And you still have to pay attention to the archetype you're looking for, whether it's aggression, mid-range, or control.
And then once you whittle it down, okay, then you have to start looking at your curve. Okay, so what kind of deck am I building? Do I want to build more aggressive? Do I want this to be more mid-range? Do I want it to be more control, combo? What kind of am I looking for? Okay, now I have to work in my resources. Okay, that's the thing with Magic. When you're building your deck, you have to figure out, okay, how many lands do I want to fit into this deck that's going to make the strategy work?
And for that, there is kind of a template for how many lands you want to play. If it's like a control list, you're kind of aiming for 25, 26, 27.
As a general rule in Magic, you want to start with 24. That's just very general.
Yeah.
Very general. That is not hard and fast, but it's a good general rule that you want to start with. Okay, so then once you have kind of a draft, then you want to play test it, see if it works. Then you have like all these other cards that are kind of in your sideboard that you just kind of want to fit in and kind of see how they work. It's a long process.
Yeah. Plus, if you want to make it competitive, then you have to test it against all the competitive decks. See what it has a good game against. See how you can make it better.
And that's what a lot of these competitive players do. Like they do that when they're trying to find ways to build decks that beat other decks. And these processes can take a long time.
For sure. And you sometimes will go on Reddit and be like, hey, I was thinking about this combo. And then some people are like, I've tested that. We've now swapped it over to this, and then you start thinking about that. What starts working with those?
No, normally if you get on Reddit, somebody's going to say you're an idiot. If you ask a question, like a legitimate question, Reddit is a terrible place.
For sure, you're going to get that.
For Magic. Magic specifically, Reddit is terrible.
I guess it depends on where you go for it.
Normally.
Yeah.
Normally on Reddit for Magic is pretty bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just like any place on the internet, but whatever.
The internet's the internet.
Yeah, right. It is what it is.
You're going to get everything.
Right. This is very, very true. So all that to say, building a deck can take a long time, but it is rewarding when you can do it. Like I encourage anyone who plays Magic or any card game, try building a deck, right? Just try building a deck, play it, have fun with it. Make it yours. And because really it is fun. It is a very, very rewarding experience.
Just realize that you're probably going to lose with it early on.
Oh, 100%.
Just expect to lose.
For sure. All right. So the next barrier, which kind of is not a barrier, but is formats. So
which we've been talking about.
We have. So in a lot of these card games, they have basically different ways you can play the game. Okay, they're called formats. So formats can vary from time periods to ways you play the game. Like for physical products, you have draft, you have sealed, and constructed. Those are probably your three big types of formats when you're talking about physical games.
Yep.
So, Jim, what do we mean when we say those three formats?
So for draft, it is a bit different than constructed. And same with sealed. So let's go over draft a little bit.
Sure.
They give you 4 packs, I believe it is. I think 4.
Oh, in draft?
Or is it 3?
Draft, I think is.
I honestly, but I know how it works.
I played draft once and it was fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's
a fun experience. Yeah. It really is.
So
I believe it's 4.
Okay. So you open the pack, you look through it, you're like, all right, we're going to take this one card. And then you set it off to the side for the person to your left to take. And then the person to your right, when they take their card, they pass you their pack of cards.
Yeah.
So you're slowly building a deck.
So I think you kind of confused it. At least you confused me a little bit there.
Okay.
So I knew what you meant, but I don't think what you said kind of matched up.
Okay.
So what it was is when you open your pack, you take a card.
Yes, you take a card
for yourself.
Yes.
And then the cards that you have left from the pack, you pass those cards to your left.
Yes. So the next person, the next player.
Right. The way it kind of sounded was you pick a card and then you pass it. It was kind of weird.
Okay.
It was kind of weird. So I just want to clarify.
So you take the rest of the cards and pass it to the person to your left.
For sure.
The person to your right does the exact same thing. So then they pass their cards to the left. That is now you. you now go through their pack, and then you take a card from.
Yeah. So when you're drafting, you usually have a group of, I don't know, is it like 8 people?
Yeah, it's 8 people.
8 people.
Yep.
Okay. So that's what's classified as a pod for drafting.
Yep.
And then once you run out of cards, then you take the cards that you picked, you build your deck. Normally draft, I believe, are 40 card decks. Correct.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 40 card decks. So you take your deck that you built, and then you play. You play against each other.
Yep.
And whoever wins the pod wins.
Yep.
Draft is fun.
Yeah.
Now, what is sealed?
Sealed is essentially the same thing. You're not more so going through your whole collection and building a deck. That's constructed.
Right.
Sealed is kind of the same thing as draft. You get 6 packs and you crack all of them. There's no passing. What you get is what you get.
Yep.
And you build a 40 card deck from that.
Right. Right. I was a little bit, again, when I first got into it, I didn't know what the differences were. Every time I heard sealed, I was a little bit confused, but it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Okay. Constructed is probably where your biggest variety is going to come.
Sure.
So with constructed, so what do we mean? What does when someone says constructed, kind of what does that typically mean? What does it refer to?
So talked about it a little bit. It is you're building a deck with all the cards you either have or want to get. So you could net deck, find a deck you want, get those specific cards, throw a deck together. It's pretty much you're making an idea out of all the different possibilities of cards that are legal for that format.
Right. So probably the biggest thing that I can think of when we're talking about constructed formats, usually the thing that differentiates each format the most is time periods.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's different types of constructed formats. So again, Magic, we're talking about Magic specifically here. There are a few different formats that I'm thinking of. We have Legacy, Vintage, Standard, Modern, and Pioneer. Okay. Standard in Magic is typically
Are we just talking official?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Now unofficially there's a lot of different other formats.
Yeah.
Right. But
Commander.
yes. Commander is a big one. I guess Commander is an official format.
Kind of. There's no official tournaments.
That's true. That is true.
Oh.
But so the reason I was saying specifying the ones that I did was the thing that differentiates those formats, it normally is time period.
Right.
Okay. So standard is typically pretty universal across a lot of these card games. Standard usually means the most recent sets.
It's pretty much the last 2 years, essentially.
Right.
Depending on time frame.
Right. Pokemon 2 years?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yu-Gi-Oh is different. You're able to play. So the traditional format, the advanced format is any card from the start of the game, but there's a ban list.
Right.
And it's pretty big.
Right. So yeah, with a lot of these constructed formats, it's time period of the cards that is usually the differentiating factor.
Yeah.
Pioneer's a relatively new format when we're talking about Magic.
I think it's been out for almost a year and a half now, I think. Yeah, a year and a half.
Yeah, it's something like that. But when does Pioneer go back to?
It goes back to Return to Ravnica.
Is there Return to Ravnica?
Yeah.
So for the Pioneer format, all cards that go back to the Return to Ravnica set, anything from Return to Ravnica and forward is all legal in Pioneer. Modern, you have to go back. Do you know what set it is that you
8th edition or Mirrodin?
Okay. So you go back to those sets, and then everything from that forward is legal in Pioneer.
So it's pretty much when they change the framework of the card to their modern.
The border?
Yes.
Okay.
The border, the frame of itself,
sure.
And to its modern state.
What's the difference? So Vintage and Legacy are old school formats. So Vintage and Legacy are like the original sets from Magic. So, Jim, because I don't know this, what's the difference between Legacy and Vintage?
So there's not much of a difference.
Is there a ban list?
There is a ban list in Legacy.
Okay.
For Vintage, there is a restricted list, but no cards are banned that I believe. Well, all right, that could be a lie. There could be some that are banned.
Okay.
But I don't believe there are. I believe it's limited to one if it is on the list.
Okay. So, and one other thing that I do want to point out, when talking about these formats, so we said that a lot of these, and you can tell from these descriptions how time periods play a role.
Yeah.
But standard is what is called a rotating format. So standard, when we say rotating, what we mean is that the sets that are legal now will not be legal in a few years.
Yeah, which I believe it happens at the end of September.
I think
rotation.
So. Yeah, it's something like that.
Or end of August, end of September. One of those.
Yeah,
two.
it's Q3, Q4.
Yeah,
right in there. So yeah, for Magic, that's a time period every year.
It's also roughly the same for Pokemon as well.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. So yeah, like pretty much all these card games, they have the standard format is a rotating format.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes that format fresh-ish.
Yeah. Guess you could also say balanced, kind of.
Again, ish.
Yeah.
Again, balancing is very difficult in physical games.
Yeah.
Games that you have paper cards in front of you, it's kind of hard to balance because when you release the cards and then they start getting played a lot, you don't know a lot of times how. I remember when Ikoria was released in Companion, that got changed real fast. Really fast.
Yeah, I think it lasted for like, what? Wasn't it like,
dude, it was a couple weeks. No.
Weeks?
It was a couple of, oh no, wait, time out. I think it was a couple of months. Yeah. But we were talking about it right away.
Yeah.
We were talking about it right away. It
was so strong.
It was immediate. The response was immediate. And everyone was calling for, okay, something has got to be done.
So it's been so long.
And it took Magic, it took WotC, Wizards of the Coast. It took them a couple of months to actually do something about it.
What was the original Companion thing? Because I don't think I remember it.
Dude, so Companion... Okay, so for those of you that don't know, Ikoria was a set released about a year ago, I believe. Okay, when Ikoria was released, they introduced a mechanic called Companion, and so what Companion was all of these cards, they had a deck building restriction. Okay, and if you could build your deck in a way that you around that restriction, you could have this card as your companion. Okay, and the Companion, the way it was designed was it was a card that sat in what was called the companion zone, okay? And you could basically use it anytime you wanted, okay? So it sat in your companion zone, and then whenever you wanted, when you were able to, you were able to cast that card from your companion zone for its cost. Yeah. So the card that caused the most uproar originally was Lurrus of the Dream Den. So Lurrus,
it's still doing great.
It is still a fantastic card. So Lurrus is a 3-drop, 1 and oh goodness, black white. What is black white? Help me out, man.
Orzhov hybrid.
So 1 and then Orzhov hybrid. Yeah. So, and what the card did was when it was in play, you could cast a permanent from your graveyard with CMC 2 or less for its cost.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, and in Magic, that's fantastic. Yeah. That is a thing.
Did we say permanent or card?
It
was permanent.
I'm pretty sure it was permanent. Yes. I do believe it was permanent. If it was any card, then that would have been even crazier. Because normally when you do that with instants and sorceries, those get exiled.
Yeah.
But that would have been crazy. Okay.
But with Lurrus for the companion thing, every single card in your deck, permanent wise, had to be 2-drop or less.
Correct. So when you're building your deck, all of your permanents had to be 1.
But he himself is 3.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Lurrus was a 3-drop. So in that deck, you could only have 1 Lurrus.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that was the card that was causing the most uproar at the time. Okay. So the way it worked was you had access to that companion whenever. Mm-hmm. So basically, when you draw in Magic, when you draw your starting hand, you have 7 cards in your starting hand. So it was kind of like you had 8 cards in your starting hand. You had an extra card at all times until you cast it. Okay. Mm-hmm. So they had to do something about it.
And then you were able to just get a card.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So what they ended up doing was they changed the rule to where now, instead of casting it from your companion zone, you had to pay 3 mana to then put that card from your companion zone into your hand.
Yep.
And then you could cast it for its mana value cost. I think when they did that, it kind of fixed a lot of it. I think.
Yeah.
I think that was a good fix.
Yeah.
I don't know what the heck they were thinking.
Yeah, that was really strong.
I don't know what they were thinking.
Mind you. So for this card, Luris, right, you can only use 2 drops and less for permanents.
Right.
So when you're including instants and sorcery spells, it could be whatever.
Right.
So people are playing this in burn decks now.
Right.
Well, pretty much since the start when he came out. They were playing Luris in the deck because there's no reason not to. Say you're towards the mid or later stages and you're like, I'm running out of gas, which essentially is card advantage. You are running out of cards to play.
Right.
You can then play Luris. It's like, all right, well, they didn't get rid of them. Now let's bring out one of those creatures they destroyed for essentially free.
Right.
It's just bring it out. It's just like, all right, start to refill this burn deck, this aggro deck.
Yep.
And it's just like, all right, well, that was fun.
So another different kind of format you have is formats that are based around rarity. Now, I don't know if there's another format like this, but the one that I can think of is Pauper.
I believe there's another one called Peasant where you can use 4 uncommon.
Oh, okay.
But it's pretty much Pauper plus 4 uncommon.
What Pauper is a format in Magic that only consists of commons.
Mm-hmm.
Commons.
As long as it's had a common print, you're able to use it. Even if the one you have is a rare,
gotcha, sure,
you could use it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's what Pauper is. So, and that's why when we started talking about formats, I kind of said it's a barrier, but it's also a way that makes these games more accessible.
Yeah,
especially with paper cards. I think different formats do make these games a lot more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I said it's a barrier is just it's another thing that you have to understand.
Yeah.
So that's what a lot of these barriers that we're talking about are, is just something that you have to understand about the game that you're playing. Yeah. So that's really it. And then the last thing we'll talk about when we talk about formats is kind of different gameplay variables. The biggest one being Commander. Commander, again, we're talking about Magic here. Commander is a multiplayer format. Started as what was known as EDH, Elder Dragon Highlander. We'll definitely talk about this more in depth probably later. Which is based off of the first Elder Dragons, correct, which our boy Nicol Bolas is a part of. Correct. And in this new set coming out, Strixhaven I believe Strixhaven is now finally fully spoiled.
Is it really?
I believe so.
Wow, okay.
I believe so. But in this set, they are introducing more Elder Dragons. I don't know if they've already been a part of the lore or if they are newly added.
I don't think Strixhaven was a thing, honestly.
I don't know.
Then again, I don't know the lore.
I don't know the lore. Speaking of lore,
oh man,
that can be another barrier. Yeah. In a lot of these games, lore plays a big part, and some people lean more heavily into the lore than others. Yeah. Me personally, I don't care much about the lore. Mm-hmm. I'm more of a gameplay type guy. Yeah. Gameplay type person. I really enjoy the gameplay. Don't really care much about the lore.
Part of the lore is the color wheel we were talking about.
Correct.
With the different names of the groups of colors.
But it's also fun. Like the lore, like if you just do a deep dive into the lore in any of these games, you're going to get lost because it's stories. It's stories and it's fun. Yep. So it's very cool. I mean, it can be a barrier, but it also can make it more accessible for you, depending on what kind of gameplay experience you're looking for, type thing. So
if you guys are interested, look up Nicol Bolas and the War of the Spark. Mm-hmm. That is a great storyline.
It is a fantastic storyline and a great set. All right. Next barrier, probably the biggest barrier of all in any card game.
Oh man, here we go.
Cost.
Yep. How much is it going to cost?
Cha-ching. Dude.
Honestly, I'm just shaking my head right now.
I know, because I don't really want to talk about it.
It's, oh my God. I don't want to talk how much I put into Modern, man.
Okay.
Or EDH.
Okay.
Come on.
Okay. I'm not going to drop names here.
Yeah.
Okay. But when I first got into Magic, okay, I remember I was going to Grapple, right? And I sat down for a match with one of our friends from the store.
Yeah.
Okay. And we were playing Standard.
Okay.
Okay. He was playing a mono green stompy list. No.
Okay. I was just lipping to him like what I thought it was.
All right. And so we are playing, and then we start talking, and then he starts talking to me about modern, and I go, "The heck is modern?" All right. I had no idea that again, we talk about formats. I didn't know what these formats were.
Yeah.
And so he starts telling me.
It wasn't me. I don't play mono green.
No. We're playing mono green standard. We were playing mono green standard.
I definitely was not playing mono green standard.
Right. But then he beat me in like 3 turns because again, that deck at the time.
The Galta list?
Yes, it was the Galta list.
Of course it was.
Yeah. So he drops Galta, and I'm just like, good game.
Yeah.
I had nothing. I had nothing at the time.
Yep.
Okay. So he starts talking about modern, and he pulls out his modern decks. And so I'm like, oh my goodness. So we start playing, and then he starts talking to me about how much they cost.
Oh, yeah.
And then he goes, oh, yeah, I put like this deck probably costs about $2,500. I'm like, what?
Is it Absan?
What are you talking about? I think it was like Tron. I think it was.
Okay.
Well, I think I was playing the Tron list.
Okay.
At the time. I don't know what he was playing, but I mean, he was just telling me about a deck, one of his decks that he played. I
guess depending on like foiling.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So it can be pretty freaking expensive.
Oh, for sure.
It can be, dude. It's insane.
Yeah.
We really don't want to talk about it that much because it probably can be crazy. Like we're half embarrassed, half we just don't want to talk about it.
Remember earlier when I said modern is my go-to format? All right, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it either. But I mean, one of the things that is cool, I think, in collectibles in general. Okay, a lot of the stuff is you're not throwing money away.
Yeah,
especially in collectibles. Now, even though the market can fluctuate and does fluctuate from time to time, what you own probably does have value. Mm-hmm. It probably does still hold some value. And again, if you're spending, like in this example I was talking about, if you're spending $2,500 on a deck, that value probably not going to fluctuate that much.
Quick side note about modern. Not every deck is worth that much.
No, sure.
And it depends on the rarity.
Right.
Because there are different printings of cards. Yes. It could be like a harder version of the card to get.
Right.
And so that could change a card's price from $40 to like $200.
Sure.
So the deck whoever it was talking about, that could have been it. But I do remember when I was playing modern that I think it was Abzan and Jund. Yeah, that was close to $2,000, like base.
Yep.
So I could see it.
Yep. And you can spend as much money as you want, or you could spend as little as you want.
Yeah, there are decks you can play in modern, and this is competitive decks.
Yes.
So going back to Burn, right? Burn was my second modern deck.
Right.
And you could get Burn for like $350, $400, $500 range, depending on, how aggressive you want to go with it. But then there are other decks that can be cheaper, roughly around the same price.
Right. And honestly, like a lot of these people, when they're building these decks, a lot of the times you're not buying these cards right away. You're not buying everything up front. Yeah. A lot of the times, like my Magic collection, it has grown over years. Oh, yeah. It's grown so much over time. And it's just, I buy these boxes, I collect these cards. I take care of them. I organize them. And they're still worth something. Yeah. Like they still have value. So it's not like, I'm just throwing money away.
Yeah.
So that's
buying this deck. I'm buying these packs. I'm trading cards. Sometimes the value goes up. Sometimes the value goes down, trading away things. It's
like anything. And it's nice for me, just this being a hobby. It is a collectible thing. Yeah. Like there's investment there. There's value. There's still 100% is value. Yeah. So, like, don't get scared off immediately. Like, it definitely can be daunting. It 100% can be daunting.
Just like any hobby, it can be expensive.
Yeah,
People who are really into cars, they know how expensive cars can be.
For sure. So yeah, it honestly, like Jim said, like any hobby, you're gonna get into it. Just be prepared. Be prepared. Know what you're getting into.
Yeah, or like taking pictures. Maybe you want a good camera, Dan. Maybe you want some good lenses out there.
Jim.
Okay, all right, let's not talk about it.
Oh, dude, that was good.
Yeah.
I was wondering where you were going with that. I'm like, holy cow.
Oh, wow. Is that some shade I just threw over there? You got a shadow.
I'll give that too. Give me some skin. That was funny. Holy cow. Oh man, that was good.
Yeah. Anything can be expensive, honestly.
True. Oh my goodness.
It's crying, guys. He's crying right now.
Yeah, Jim is making me cry now. That's pretty funny. Oh my goodness. Oh man. Woo. All right. So the last barrier that I want to talk about here is community. Community. Seriously, just like Jim said, that's why we're doing this. We love community. Community.
And my favorite part about card games.
Community is something we want to build. We are building a community. We know it's going to take a while. We know it's going to take a long time. Community is one reason we are doing this podcast.
Yep.
And we both have experiences, good and bad experiences with community, just in general. But Jim, kind of give us a quick rundown and kind of give us your thoughts of how community can be a barrier.
Yeah.
a barrier of entry into these TCGs and CCGs.
So say you come across a card game that looks really cool. You like the art. You don't really know too much about it. Then you start to talk to some people, except they don't seem really friendly, except you've already started putting money into the game and you want to play it. But the more you talk to people, it can kind of seem like they're excluding you, right? Are you really going to want to keep playing the game? It's difficult to get into a card game if you don't really have people to play with. You go to stores and you can see groups of people pretty much always sitting by each other, talking about whatever stuff. And there's like no one ever new that gets into it unless you are a competitive person. If you know that group is pretty much all about competition and doing really well at the game, getting into that in crowd, that clique can be difficult, or it can also push you away from the game,
Right. Yeah. One of the things that I kind of have written down here, excuse me. But it's knowing who your local community consists of. Right. So like Jim was saying, if your community is full of unwelcoming people and like guys who've just played together for a long time, and then you're a newcomer and they don't know you and they don't want to know you.
Which happens quite a lot.
Yeah, it does. I mean, that can turn I can imagine if I went into Grapple the first time I played Magic with my Goblins deck.
Yeah.
That deck was fun. I enjoyed it. It was not very good, but it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine if I went in there and the people that I sat down and played with were not very nice, gave me a hard time, told me I was terrible, which honestly I was.
What if they were just sick and tired of playing against mono red? That was a mono red Goblins.
That was a mono red list. Yes, it was. It was 100%.
Yeah.
They could have just totally basically thrown me off.
Yeah.
And I would have never come back there.
Yeah. You're there to have a good time, meet some people,
Right.
And it's just, I don't ever want to come back again.
Right. Why would I ever want to come back if you guys treated me this way?
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that I always think about, because it's not something I want in my community.
Yeah.
Period. End of story.
Yep.
There was, I am going to talk about this. I do want to mention this real quick. There was an incident not that long ago in our own community. Okay. It was a racist incident. Okay. Something happened in our town.
Oh,
okay?
Yeah.
There was
I thought you were talking about it at Grapple. I'm like, what?
No. There was something that happened in our town. It was a racist incident at a local convenience store. An individual shouted, not even like expletives, but just racially insensitive language to another family. Eventually the individual was arrested. I believe I don't know if he was charged. I don't even think the trial has been had yet, but he was arrested. And I read about the story I believe I saw it on Facebook. And this is not a discussion about if it was correct, right, wrong, nothing.
Just, we don't want it.
Yes. This conversation that we're having right now is about not something we want in our community, not something I want in my community, in a community that I am a part of. It saddened me that type of behavior is in my community, is where I live. I'm not naive enough to think that that kind of behavior does not exist, because we all know it does, but it is not something that I thought was in the community that I am a part of and that I live.
Yep.
And so in reading about the story, I was very upset and frustrated and saddened by the fact that that is in my community. So that very, very much saddened me. Just the fact that it happened.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy.
It was very crazy. I mean, we're not really gonna get into the specifics, but it's very, very, very disheartening.
Yep.
And so for what Jim and I are building here, we want the community that we build to be very open and inviting, and we don't
inclusive
want,
to everyone.
We don't want anyone to feel like they are not welcome.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, you know, I'm rarely ever going to tell anyone that they can't do a thing.
Yeah.
But if you are purposefully being mean and you are telling someone they are not welcome, no, we don't want that. Yeah. We want to be very open
and we
and
understand.
Inviting.
Yeah, we understand that different people have different views upon things, but it still doesn't change the fact that these are people.
Yeah, and you know what? I actually do have a really good experience from Grapple. I remember there was a time where I was talking at Grapple with two people about politics. Yep. We were talking about politics.
I remember.
And it was a really, really good discussion.
Yeah.
I disagreed with them on pretty much everything, but
I remember that now.
We were talking for a while, and we were just having really good civil discussions just about policies and politics and everything in between.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we disagreed, but I understood where they were coming from. I understood their point of view, and I think they understood mine. And it was a really fruitful discussion. And that's the kind of community that I love being a part of, and that I want others to be a part of too, to where you are free to discuss whatever you want, and you're never going to be, you know, told that you are not welcome. And both Jim and I, that's important to both of us.
Yeah, when it starts to getting into people yelling, you know, talking down about whatever it is, you know, that's not really a thing when people learn. Like you were saying, you came out of it understanding where they were coming from. Right. You didn't agree with it because of whatever history you have, you know, but you still acknowledge the fact that these are still people. They've gone through different life experiences. And there was
a mutual respect there.
Yeah.
There 100% was a mutual respect. Yeah. For sure. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we talk about when we just talk about community in general. But one thing that I do want to mention here is, since we're talking about barriers to entry into these games, I don't know if we mentioned it, but does your local community support the game that you want to play? There's a new game out, relatively new, Flesh and Blood.
Yeah. It's been a little over a year.
Flesh and Blood is like the newcomer on the TCG, CCG market. So that's so cool. It is so much fun, but like, getting the support that you're going to want for that game, I don't know if it's easy or hard. Because like, I know that the communities who play these games they're not very big. Yeah. So that's a quick example of kind of.
Can I talk a little bit about Flesh and Blood?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I recently started getting more into it, right? I've bought multiple boxes, been doing a lot of research on the card game, and it's essentially you're playing as a class, like I brought up earlier, right? The cleric, the priest from World of Warcraft.
Dude, it's awesome. It is so much fun.
And it's kind of like that. So like you're playing the character, you have the deck that you're building with however it is, but you also have equipment. You have equipment in other games as well, not so much card games. Well, in the way that this is set up.
Right. Sure. Right.
And so it's like there's another whole theory crafting thing of these equipments. I'm playing as a ninja. I want to go fast, but I also need to be able to defend against a caster.
Right.
You know, say I'm going up against a wizard. I put on some of my anti-magic armor.
Right.
So you're playing against that, and then you're using all the whatever cards and whatnot. It's very themed about one-on-one combat. I'm a ninja. You're a wizard. Let's fight. And but the more research I've been doing into this, we talked about the cost of magic. Dan?
Dude, I know.
Man.
I know. But that's because
I don't want to talk about it.
But that's because when they designed this game, they designed this game for collectors in mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with these boxes, what they're doing is they are doing a first edition print run. Once that first edition is out, they're not printing the first edition anymore. So the
other card games have done this.
Right. But I think they're doing this for every set.
Yeah.
I believe they're doing it for every set. So like the next set that comes out is Monarch. So I don't think you can get a Monarch first edition.
They haven't done Unlimited Crucible yet, which
Are they doing that?
We don't know.
Oh yeah.
Crucible has so many good cards.
That's true.
And that's where I'm like, I don't want to talk about specific cards.
No, yeah.
One of them is about
crazy.
one of them is like $7,500 for one card. I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous.
From Crucible?
Yeah.
Is it a Majestic?
Yes.
Okay.
Or no, it's a Fabled.
Okay, it's the Fabled.
Fabled specifically for Runeblade.
Okay.
It's about $7,500.
Insane.
It's also only in first edition, like we were talking about.
Right.
So the first edition printing of cards are harder to get, especially now.
Right. And again, that also gets into when we talk about markets, you talk about supply and demand. Yeah. The economics of secondary markets is crazy. So like if you like economics, you will enjoy card games.
Yeah.
You will.
That's
seriously,
sure.
you will.
Yeah.
Because the secondary markets are crazy.
Yeah.
It's very cool just to watch what happens. So that's cool.
And it's sad to see when everything goes down.
Yes.
Like it did last March.
Yeah. Well, dude, everything went down last March.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think my retirement account went down.
Oh man,
I lost a bit of money in that too. But anyway,
I was upset when I saw my stonks go down.
Yeah, I think everybody lost a bunch of money last month. All right. So anyway, we've gone on for quite a while, but if you can't tell, there's quite a few. There are quite a few barriers of entries into.
Mind you, we pretty much only talked about Magic.
Well.
But there's also so much stuff.
The specifics we were talking about, we applied them from the standpoint of Magic.
Yeah.
They do apply in
they apply
all
to
of these
pretty
card
much everything
games. They do. They apply.
I'm more so talking about like all the different. So the archetypes can also go in between different formats,
right?
Or different card games.
Sure.
But every single card game has its own thing. You want to learn about the meta?
Yes.
Well, you go look up the meta in Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh.
Like honestly, research could be its own barrier to entry.
Yeah.
Because really,
it is.
Even this podcast, like what we've talked about, it's all of the research that we've done. Mm-hmm. There really is going to be research involved on your part in learning the game, learning the meta, learning period. Yeah. Research is definitely
the different mechanics to the specific games, how everything works. It's nuts.
And again, that's what appeals to me, my personality, the way my brain thinks.
Yeah.
I
love it so much.
People like me, like if you like strategic games, card games is where it's at. It really is. It's specifically TCGs and CCGs.
Yep.
So so those are a lot, and we know there's a lot of barriers to entry into these games. But honestly, once you get past them, we both believe and we both think that the experiences that can be had in these games are so worth it. They really are.
And I want to talk again about the cost. Like, don't be afraid to get into Magic or any other card game because it can be a lot. You don't have to put in a lot of money in order to play. You know, you can go get one deck, cost like $30.
Especially Commander.
And this is all sealed product. You can go get a $30 Commander deck and then just play.
You can build a Commander deck for like $25.
Yeah, it can be really cheap.
And you can build a good Commander deck. Go watch Commander's Quarters.
Yeah.
On YouTube. He's all about those budget brews, and they're good. They are good decks. So don't let these barriers be barriers.
Yeah.
They don't have to be barriers to be getting into these games.
For sure. You don't have to put a lot of money into it in order to have fun.
You don't. So don't be scared. Don't be scared by all of these things that we've talked about.
We just understand
that
it can be a lot.
Yeah, we've gotten to the point now to where looking back on our experiences, we've realized that we've kind of jumped through these hurdles, not so you don't have to, because you do have to jump through them. Yeah. You do. You have to overcome them.
I still won't go above like spending $25 on a card.
Yeah.
I'll trade. Don't. But for me personally, if it goes over like $100 playset, I'm like, Oh, do I really want it? I don't want it.
I know.
It hurts me.
It
honestly.
hurts. But you know what? I bought Ren 6.
Yeah.
When it first came out for cheap.
Yeah, it was cheap. And then
For cheap.
Yeah.
And how much is that card worth now? Like $50?
Yeah,
no.
So it shot up from back when it was cheap. It then shot up because John did Modern. Went really high, which is black, red, and green.
Correct.
Okay. It's shot up because what Jund wants to do is they want to get a lot of value and draw the game out so that way they have more card advantage than you.
Yep.
So Ren 6 is just like, all right, I'm going to take cards from my graveyard, specifically lands,
and put them back in your hand.
Put them back into your hand, play them, and then so there are things called fetch lands to where you can send it to the graveyard to go tutor in your deck to go put it onto the field.
Look at you. Look at you.
See that?
Look at you look at you bringing it full circle.
Look at all these terms you guys learned today.
Full circle. Oh man.
Yep.
So Jim, all right. So talking all about that, Jim, if people want to find you on the internet,
do you guys want to find me online?
And talk these things with you.
Yeah.
Where can people find you on the internet?
You guys can find me at Jim Morgan HNH on both Instagram and Twitter.
All right. So you can find me on Twitter at _DG Campbell. And I'm over on Instagram at Daniel.G.Campbell. All of these will be in the show notes.
Yep.
And we will also post a link to our Discord. Our Discord, we are working at getting that up and running. I'm trying to get that more organized for you guys so we can have it, again, place for the community to come chill, hang out, learn. And one thing I want to mention here, you can find us on all major podcasting platforms.
iHeartRadio, Apple.
If you are listening to us on one of those, please leave us a 5-star review. We would love to read your reviews on the show.
Oh, I love knowing what everyone thinks.
Yeah. So last I checked, we have 5-star ratings on Apple Podcasts.
We're kind of a big deal.
Keep those coming. Keep those coming.
Thank you, guys.
If we do get a review, I do kind of just want to read them kind of on the show. So that'd be kind of neat. So yeah. I think that's kind of all I have. Oh, I do want to mention here, we are working at getting the Hobbies and Happiness Instagram page up and running. The one thing we're waiting on now is logo. We are working on designing a logo or brand.
Yeah.
We are working on designing our brand.
Yes.
Right. So once we kind of get that finalized, we will get all the business, basically socials up and running, so we can communicate with the community there. Once we get that, kind of like I said, we'll get Instagram, Twitter up and running, and then sometime soon we will be not moving the podcast to YouTube, but we will be doing a video portion.
Should we do some TikTok dances?
Dude, no.
Maybe one day.
What are you talking about?
All right,
man?
if this podcast can get 150 likes, is that a thing? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. Because there's so many different platforms, I don't really know. But we can do it. Know. We can try.
If we can get that many, we're gonna do TikTok dances.
We'll do something.
Let us know.
We'll do something.
We'll do the cinnamon challenge.
That's so old.
I know, it's like 5 years old.
Yeah. And you can also email us. If you've got questions or anything, you can also email us. Yeah. Jim, what's the email again? Is that hobbiesandhappiness@gmail.com?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
hobbiesandhappiness@gmail.com.
Yeah, we will put all this in the show notes. And so, Jim, thank you for the episode. This was a lot of fun.
Oh, it was a blast.
And I appreciate everybody listening. And so with that, we will see you all next time.
Everyone, take care.
All right, see you, everybody.